Welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name is Robert Winters.
And I'm Judy Nathans.
And today is March 29th.
29th, right. 22nd was last week. Yep.
Yeah, so I think maybe what I'd like to do tonight is actually just start off with a pretty sad announcement for some of you. Some of you may have known Peter Sheinfeld. Peter was a Cambridge Election Commission, one of the Republican Cambridge Election Commissioners.
Republican.
Yep, and he's been on the he's been election commissioner now for 7 years, and I've known him for 25. And Peter passed away yesterday at the age of 68.
Too young.
Very much too young. Just to say a few things about the circumstances of his passing, he apparently took a fall on March 1st. I guess doing the rounds as an election commission, sustained some injuries, but either didn't get the appropriate medical attention or wasn't aware that he really needed it until this past Friday, when he was still actually doing election worker training as late as this past Wednesday. Must have had some kind of episode on Friday. He was hospitalized. And things quickly deteriorated to the point where they actually took him off life support on Sunday, and he passed away Monday morning. For a lot of us, it's a real serious tragedy. It's really, really close to home. For those of you who don't know Peter Sheinfeld, Peter was the host of many years ago with WMBR, or back when it was WTBS at MIT. He did a show called Rock and Roll Memory Time.
Oh, wow.
And Peter knew about, when it comes to popular songs going back as many decades as you can imagine, he knew everything. He would just tell you the record labels, who else covered the songs. He knew everything about music, popular music, obscure political facts. Everything you could ever imagine about railroad trains. He used to work at the Department of Transportation.
Oh my goodness.
He also owned several taxi cab medallions and was very, very active in the, in sort of supporting the taxi cab industry. And, as an election commission, I would walk home with him pretty much after every election commission meeting until the last one I didn't go to, and now I really miss that. But anyway, a lot of people knew Peter. He was a man who led a relatively solitary life day to day, but who actually knew incredibly many people, and many people knew him. So,
is there any public memorial service?
Nothing announced yet. I know a few people who are actually talking now about putting something together, but we'll see. As I find out more, I'll certainly put it up on the Cambridge Civic Journal, and otherwise try and get the word around. It's definitely been a tough year so far with premature passings of people some of us know. So anyway, sorry to start off on that note, but it's actually something that hit really close to home to a lot of us. I think more on the sort of city council, school committee, civic kind of front. There are a few other things going down.
There was a roundtable last night, not a regular meeting.
Yeah, so last night.
What does that mean exactly?
Roundtable meetings are meetings which are, in principle, were designed to be more, let your hair down, more casual, where city departments would be there, would speak freely and more of a...
To each other, to groups that they don't normally meet with?
Well, the thing is, not so much groups. The thing is that it's really for city administration, city councilors, and department heads, and you can have direct interaction amongst everyone, which is something you generally don't have at a city council meeting.
And they're open to the public.
They're open to the public, but there's no public comment, which from my point of view, I think that's exactly right for roundtable meetings.
Yeah, because in a way, it's really for them.
It's really, so they get together, they just sort of talk about things, and then the next week they'll have a regular meeting and anybody can say what they want.
Right.
In fact, actually, they did a recent rules change where the minutes of each roundtable meeting will be an agenda item at the subsequent regular meeting. And as such, because it'll be on an agenda item to be sort of approval of the minutes,
Yeah.
people will be permitted to make comment at the subsequent
point.
meeting
Okay, that makes
about
sense.
anything that was discussed at a round table. So I think that was a pretty
Did
good
they,
amendment.
and they take minutes of those? Is that
They do take
available on the
minutes.
city
They are-
website?
They are not recorded for TV, though there are
No, but there'll be minutes.
there
On
are
the
minutes
website?
available,
Okay.
right? But they're not. You won't see them on the municipal channel. I mean, there are some individuals with video recording devices who are, quite
Yeah.
honestly, passive aggressives at best, who will insist on recording them anyway just to spite the rules. So.
Well, but I meant just literal minutes that would be,
yeah,
I could
every
read.
minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I care about. I
yeah.
don't need to hear it.
Sometimes they're not particularly interesting. Sometimes they're actually quite interesting.
And how was this one?
Well, this one I thought was actually interesting. It was this, I think several times per year, 3 or 4 times a year, they'll have a special roundtable with the Cambridge School Committee.
Oh, several times a year.
Yeah, now these are separate elected bodies. They all each
Right.
have their own affairs.
Right.
But it's really helpful since, the city has to pay for the schools.
Yes.
And the children of the city, including city councilors, go to
Yes.
the schools. So there's some interplay between them.
Yes.
The only official connection has been the mayor. The mayor is the chair of the school committee.
Right, right, they serve on both, right?
Yeah, so in a sense, it's really as though the mayor is kind of like the liaison.
I was going to use that word.
Yeah.
Except are they a voting member of the school committee?
The mayor is definitely a voting
So
member
they
of the
vote
school
on
committee.
both bodies. They can
Yeah, absolutely right.
important position.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's how that works, and I think for the most part, as I say, they can be kind of like watching paint dry, but this particular one was, I thought, interesting. There was some, I heard just before I got there, they were talking about the financial impact of the reconstruction of the building where the King Open is now, the old
yes.
Harrington School,
Right.
which I think the price tag is going to be considerably more.
Oh, why is that? Just things were estimated at one time. And
I know. I
now
think I don't actually know what the estimates are, but or were.
Right.
But I believe I heard a figure somewhere in excess of $150 million.
Oh, okay.
So these are not cheap. But I mean, this includes other things too. I mean, the pool is there. There's a library in the building. So. And you're basically building a school that will.
You mean a public library?
A public
Is
branch
attached
of the public
to,
library.
right, exactly.
I think
Okay.
it's called, I believe, the Valenti branch.
Yes, and then the pool down there, that's part of it too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Right, so it's a much bigger
it's a big
complex.
enough project. Yeah. And there'll be community uses that'll be integrated
Sure.
into it as well. But it's
Yeah.
very expensive.
But there are, school bonds for that
Yeah.
and things.
One of the things that I found a little bit more interesting than just the price tag of that was some of the comments of city councilors on some other matters. For example, I think the mayor, Denise Simmons, actually, who, as I've said before, runs a great meeting, and
Does she run these roundtables? I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
who runs the round table?
She runs the round
She
tables
runs,
as
okay.
well. So as chair of the city council, actually as chair of both bodies, she's the.
So is it
natural
run
chair.
like a regular meeting where someone has to raise their hand or whatever and?
Yeah, she basically,
Recognize-
people make a gesture,
I see.
like in an auction, and she jots
Okay.
down the name, and then she calls them in order.
Okay,
But this, rather than, I've been at some other school committee, city council roundtable meetings where it was almost like a competition where, somebody didn't like the fact that they weren't continuing some program or they weren't offering world languages, and why don't you do this?
it's
And
more like, all the things we want to see you do rather than,
yeah. And so it could be combative
Yeah.
sometimes, though usually not.
okay.
But this one I thought was actually pretty well organized in that the mayor was asking all the assembled city councilors and school committee members to basically put on the table the issues that they thought that future roundtables should be addressing, issues of mutual concern.
Okay.
So it was set up in a constructive way, and the members present responded constructively. There were some interesting things said. For example, one of the things I thought was interesting was a discussion about students who are listed as eligible to receive free and reduced lunch. That's kind of code word because
Low income.
for low income. So just in terms of how do you categorize things, they don't do it essentially by racially and whatever. So what they'll do is they'll categorize people by who's eligible to receive free.
Yeah, it's sort of a good barometer of it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is that as was pointed out by Mark McGovern especially, there are who's eligible is determined by federal guidelines, and federal guidelines for poverty. The where do you draw the line on poverty is a very low number compared to what it really costs to live in a place like Cambridge.
True.
So as Mark said straight away, that pretty much most of the kids who are eligible by federal standards to receive free and reduced lunch are children of people living in public housing.
Well, yeah, and I think even if you change that standard, some families still wouldn't get it because of I think there still is a stigma about it.
Sure, a lot of people would choose not to receive it.
Or you can bring your own lunch, which
that's right.
I've helped out in the cafeteria. And
certainly what I did when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
But the one proposal was floated, and it was kind of interesting to sort of think about it financially, was, and this is from Leland. Well, first let me say that Mark McGovern, the vice mayor, said that pointed out that a recent study suggests that the actual income you need to live in Cambridge is
like $56,000.
Even more.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe the numbers that are quoted in the report that came from a committee about that, which suggests that unless you're making over $100,000, then it's just not possible.
Is it a family of four?
I think even for a family of four, I think maybe you can live comfortably, and maybe there's some circumstances where that might be necessary, but I think there are other ways to live that maybe doesn't require that much. But whatever it is, there's a big disparity between a federal standard of 20-some-odd thousand and
no one can live on that. That's crazy.
An alleged standard of 100-some thousand.
Yeah.
So there are actually a lot of families who make in between there, who actually would have a hard time, just covering the cost of lunches.
I'll throw it right out there, like a 2-bedroom apartment, you're lucky if you can find one for less than $2,000 a month. Usually it's closer to $3,000. So if you multiply that times 12, that's already, you're paying 50% of your income after tax dollars for rent. So you'd need, you're right, close to $100,000 for a family of four.
Right. So what do you do about the people in the middle?
It's tough.
It's sort of like it's a classic. This is true both federally and in Cambridge in a lot of other ways. Is like, if you're very poor, there are programs and ways of handling things. And if you're very rich, you don't need them and you're fine. But there's this really large gap in the middle of people who don't necessarily qualify for local or federal programs.
Although, doesn't Cambridge have a lot of affordable, like you can make up to a certain percentage of it, which is pretty high?
Yeah.
I mean, actually, we do a lot for that.
I think it was Monica Bowman from the school committee put as one of her priorities was doing something for workforce housing, meaning, if you're a teacher in the public school,
teachers, firemen,
how to get housing. But it was actually David Marr who pointed out that, in fact, for a lot of people in that situation, Cambridge's programs, whether it be through some of the affordable housing programs, city-funded, or the inclusionary units, that are under the control of city agencies or quasi-city agencies, that actually you can actually score a place to live.
No, I know, that's what I was saying. I mean, you can actually earn, forget the federal, up to, I saw a figure like 70 something, for a family of, so it is possible. I mean, we do have a lot of moderate, let's call it moderate income housing that's available if you, I mean, there are restrictions. You can't have certain money in the bank. You have to,
Right.
But
and
we do a lot
as
here.
I've commented somewhat cynically in the past, there are also people who are really expert at being poor on paper who can really qualify for anything and everything, which is kind of unfortunate that it works sometimes that way. But hey, you create rules, people find a way to work
Donald
within the rules.
Trump even said that. He said, I know the system's rigged because I use it.
Right, I know. So
anyway,
that was interesting. And then Councillor Leland Chung, he made a suggestion. He says, well, why don't we just, if there's an issue about providing reduced cost lunch for people, why don't we just provide it for everybody? what would be the financial impact?
You mean like free education, like Bernie?
Well, I don't know. This is a little
Like free lunch?
I think the total financial impact of just providing free meals for all the students would probably be in the vicinity of an additional $700,000.
Is that the figure that they come up with?
That was one of the estimates that was floated by Jimmy Maloney at the meeting. But then he also pointed out that, but you know, if you had free lunch, you wouldn't need cashiers. But then again, who wants to lay off the cashiers? You know, so you're going to throw them out of a job then, right? But you know, so I don't know what the actual total.
I'm not sure that all the kids would take it, frankly. I know it's improved, but it's still. I mean, it's an interesting. I think they could try it maybe in a school.
Yeah, I mean,
they could do a pilot program and see how many kids actually take advantage of the free lunch.
Yeah. Now, apparently, the city is not if some kid's hungry and they need a meal.
They're not going to.
They take care of you.
Exactly.
And do they chase you down to get you to pay for people who to a degree, but not very aggressively? It's apparently the word that was being conveyed there.
Okay.
So you know, I mean, if you can afford it, I think they would like you to pay for it, but you know. So I thought that was an interesting exchange. You know. So and again, as I say, sometimes these roundtable meetings are pretty boring, but I thought that was an interesting exchange. Another thing, two things actually from Richard Harding on the school committee, which I found were interesting. So when he was sort of putting on the table things that he thought should be the subject of future discussions, he included his desire that the school committee be included in the loop in some of what's going on with the city manager search. Now, obviously, the school committee is not going to be a part of the decision. Yeah. But it is certainly true that the setting of a school budget, all of the things related to the schools, it is a city department, and it is all done in concert with the city manager. So the city manager, as he does with all the departments, lays out a budget message, or to all the departments. Well, you've got to hold the line, you've got to do this, we're going to allow just, such and such an increases, but no more. Yeah. And there's a real negotiation that goes on between the school department and particularly the school superintendent. And Kenneth Salim is going to be the new superintendent, I believe, come end of June. Yeah. And so it's having a good relationship between the superintendent of schools and the city manager is actually pretty important. So Richard Harding was simply, making that point, and I think he was kind of right about that. So
but the mayor does sit on the school committee, so isn't she kind of, or he?
Yeah, but the thing is that any of the sort of background budget negotiations, the mayor may be a part of it, but there's just as likely a chance that other members of the school committee are the.
So what is he saying, that they all should be involved, or maybe a member appointed?
I think they should all be apprised of what's going on and
that makes sense.
Be given ample opportunity to respond to it, advise.
Okay. Yeah.
Nobody was asking that they somehow be involved in a decision. Right. That's to be sure.
Okay, I see.
So I thought that was a good point to make. Richard often makes very good points. He also made another point which kind of relates to something we talked about on this program, which he said, well, he just put out the question rhetorically, simply saying, so whatever happened with STEM and STEAM? Last term, city council term, there was many meetings of two, I think it was neighborhood long-term planning and economic development, two separate committees meeting jointly, coming up with some ideas about STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics.
Math, right.
And I've always been a little curious about it because to me, fundamentally, we are talking about things that are educational, primarily educational. And I never really felt that this was something that was kind of grown in concert with the school system, and that unless it wasn't really going to go anywhere. So they met a lot. I think they hired a STEAM coordinator.
Was that Dennis Benzan's? Was he a big
Dennis was on one committee and Nadine Masson was on the other.
Okay.
And I guess I would like to see some revival of what was begun and maybe a little bit of reshaping, maybe in a slightly different context. But as Richard Harding says, maybe he posed the question rhetorically, where is STEM and STEAM? And he said, somewhere between here and Kendall Square. which I thought was the perfect response.
That is a good response.
Yeah. So,
I think there's stuff going. I mean, speaking of which, the Cambridge Science Festival is happening April. I guess it's that vacation week.
coming up real,
Yeah,
within
and they're looking for
a couple weekends from
volunteers.
now.
I actually signed up. I'm not sure I can do it, but there's a lot going on there, and that's
In fact,
one of the first in the country. What?
Seeing the posters.
Yeah, well, they just last week they were giving out the booklets. I was supposed to get a bunch to distribute, but so you should be seeing those popping up, or just Google Cambridge Science Festival, and it's all over the city, and it's an amazing. It really is an amazing thing that they do, because it goes from, they've got all the businesses involved, they have, the schools involved, the libraries, right? I mean,
I went to a lot of them. Actually, my favorite thing they ever did was...
and a lot of them are free. Some you have to sign up for, even if they're free, and some you have to pay for, but that's fair.
The best thing I saw at the Science Festival, I think it was one of the first ones well, I don't know if it's the first one, but when it was a few years ago, it was something like Big Ideas for Busy People, where it was like
I remember
these
that.
world-renowned scientists and other big thinkers were given 5 minutes to explain
is that up in Harvard Square?
Yeah. It was the inflationary theory of the universe with Alan Guth, 5 minutes, and then a big gong would happen at the end of the 5 minutes.
I don't know if I went to that, but that sounds so familiar.
It sounds crazy to try and encapsulate some very complex theory in 5 minutes. But in a funny way, it worked.
Yes, and I know they had dance and art collaborations with scientists. I think I went to something up there. It's great. I mean, really.
So that's coming up now. Something near and dear to us, being sort of old hands at recycling and related matters, was this Thursday is opening day.
Oh God, I forgot about that. I keep pushing because I just the
bring your own bag ordinance.
Yes.
So in theory, every store, every shop, everything in Cambridge is supposed to, people who go shopping are supposed to bring their own bag.
Or pay 10 cents for a paper bag. Or a lot of places are selling very cheap reusables, but the stores can use plastic. It just has to be of a certain millimeter thickness.
Right.
But you also, I think, have to pay for that.
Right, and you do have to pay for it.
So bring your own is the best bet. And it doesn't include the produce bags. It doesn't include cleaning plastic. It doesn't include your newspaper plastics. So please recycle all those, because all of these are recyclable. It's not that we couldn't. It's just that it's really the thin flyaway bags you see in the trees. Right,
and it's great that there's some effort meant to contain that problem.
But I listened to a webinar that was held by Mass Recycle last week. It was held by Whole Foods to try to get industries kind of input into it, and they had a woman from Trex who makes the plastic lumber, and how they use some of this. So it was very interesting, because they also had Clint Richmond, he's representing Brookline, but we know he's Sierra Club too. And it was very interesting, but it came up about Cambridge, and in fact, Mike Orr, who we had as a guest, had a question that was put in to him about, well, who's going to enforce this? And news to me was that Cambridge is going to have a citizen complaint form you can fill out, which I think is a big mistake, Mike. But anyway,
So this is going to be, so if you see one of your neighbors not bringing a bag.
No, I think if you see a store giving out.
Ooh, we got to rat them out.
Yeah, and I just think that can work, because first of all, stores are getting waivers. If they have a supply of bags, they're allowed to use them up to a certain amount, I think 6 months or something. So just be aware of that, people. But I know he's trying to be inclusive, but I don't know who's going to answer those citizen complaint forms.
I think I mentioned, maybe it was last week, I just had done a random trip down to the Galleria Mall.
Yes, you did, yes.
And I think a lot of people, when they think about bring your own bag, they think about going to the Star Market or Whole Foods.
But it's every retail establishment.
It's every retailer, and I imagine in a place like Galleria Mall, where a lot of people are not Cambridge people.
A down coat isn't going to go into it.
And they're just showing up to go shopping, and then somehow.
But they give paper bags out anyway. They give the big. Although a lot of them will give the big plastic ones, and if it's raining, you might want that plastic. Except if it's thick enough, you're still going to be able to get it, but you have to pay for it. So, which that's fine, because the store gets to keep the money. Apparently, it's up to them. Although Whole Foods is donating it.
Yeah.
Because they've already been giving out the bags.
Sure.
So they're doing a service that
I mean,
way.
I have seen,
Yeah.
and which was what I had hoped would happen,
Yeah.
would be that even the suggestion of something like this
Yeah.
would cause stores that had been somewhat reticent about moving in a best direction
Oh,
to start
they're doing it.
advertising the sale of
Exactly.
inexpensive reusable
99
bags.
cent. Yeah.
And so if you go to Market Basket, which is in Somerville, so they're not
Yeah.
subject to the ordinance,
No.
everywhere you see reusable bags being marketed there. I think maybe they understand that if Cambridge does this, Somerville is liable to do it soon too.
Yeah, but Whole Foods is really marketing it a lot,
Yeah.
and they're selling them really cheaply, and I mean, you know, or if you have some of your old ones, just save them. They're very easy to put in your pocket. I mean, you're not going to get arrested if you use it. You just can't get them.
For those of us who've been reusing bags for
Years.
20
Right.
plus years.
I reuse them or I
it's
recycle them.
about
So
time everybody
Yeah.
came around to my
Right.
way of thinking.
right, so
Yeah.
that's good. So right, I completely forgot it was this week. You're
Yeah,
right.
so that's coming
So
up
be on a
real
lookout.
soon.
Plus, yard waste starts the day after.
Yeah, actually, I've already got the code red alert messages on the
Me
on
too.
the phone
Yes.
saying
Yes.
starting this Friday,
Well, depending on your neighborhood.
depending on your neighborhood,
Yeah.
if you're a first Friday of the
Or a
month
first
place,
Monday, or a second,
Yeah.
whatever,
the
Thursday.
evil tow truck could
Yes.
come as early as
Yes.
this Friday for some of you.
Yeah, so please read those signs that they're on every street, aren't they? Street cleaning starts,
It
and
should
then,
be on every street.
and it'll tell you when on your, and
If there's one Christmas wish I could have for the city of Cambridge, it would
Yeah.
be that somehow we could find a way to communicate all of these regulations to everybody and remove about 90%
Of the signage? well,
There is no city comparable to Cambridge in terms of number of regulatory signs.
regulatory
on
or
street
squares. Because a friend of
Well,
mine that
squares is
visited
one
said
thing.
squares, every street
Every
has a square named.
Every square is named for somebody.
somebody, yeah.
But you cannot walk down any
Yeah.
street without seeing
Well.
30 signs regulating this, that, or something
Well,
else.
because we have parking permit signs.
Well,
You have to
that's
have
it.
that.
And so, but yeah,
And
but
street signs, I haven't seen any other ones. Stop signs, you can't get rid of those.
I know. And maybe we'll paint
Jeez.
what they do in California.
What do
They paint the curb red. It means something. They paint the curb
Oh, so
yellow,
now I
it
have to
means
look
something.
down?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's
No,
no
not a
perfect
good idea.
solution. So anyway, we're down to our last 10 seconds here. So
Signs, it's an 80s song.
It's
Everywhere.
sign, everywhere
Yeah.
sign. So
Yeah.
anyway, until 3 minutes from now, this is Cambridge